Many saw this coming, but Chrome for Android will be receiving the built-in variant of the Reading Mode app. When available, you will see it appear in the hamburger menu on the top right-hand corner. You'll see an option that says in that menu, listen to this page. I would definitely recommend the app to those who read a lot of articles and even to some that don't. I
Yeah.
literally use the app every single week in preparation for these episodes. And it makes things go much smoother, and it's not as mundane as just reading by yourself. So I don't know about you, Riley, but that's how I feel about it. And I'm kind of glad it's coming to more of the ecosystem for Google, but not too much of a surprise.
Yeah, I've utilized it a few times when I'm on websites and stuff. And you're right, it is actually easier to comprehend stuff when something's being read to you. It's one of the reasons why I'm a fan of audiobooks as well. But yeah, that's actually good that they're adding that.
Yeah, now, to be clear, like I said, it's Chrome for Android. So that means it's not coming to iOS, at least for now. And I don't suspect it probably ever will, but that's just my speculation on it. So,
Okay. Well, that's good though.
yeah, it's still good.
Yeah. So we know that a lot has come from the DMA, or the Digital Markets Act, and much of it has been hitting Apple quite hard. This time, Apple has been pinned to a corner to allow users in the EU to utilize browsers such as Chrome and Firefox on their iPhones. So while Apple is still being its good old stingy self and only making minimal efforts, the rest of us will be stuck with Safari and WebKit. So it's quite fun here.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the WebKit. I was
Yeah.
like, can we not already use different
No,
browsers
you
on
yeah,
the...
you can. You can,
But
obviously.
yeah, but the Chrome, like Chrome is based on the WebKit for Safari here in the States. So I see what you're saying now.
Yep.
I got you.
So
Well, I know the EU. I'm like, can we not get the US to get on board with this? Can we not get some regulators helping us out here? Because I think the EU is getting some really good deals.
I didn't want to make this comment. I wasn't sure I was going to come across, but I was like, maybe we should have our own Digital Markets Act. It would be nice.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, I don't know how you guys feel about it as listeners, but I'm sure some will probably, disagree with, oh, I don't like what the EU is doing. I like some of what the EU is doing. So it's kind of maybe hit or miss, but yeah. It's only 2024, at least for a few weeks now, and we already have leaks on the Pixel 9 Pro. They have sourced from a reliable leaker, and the images reveal that Google looks to pursue a chassis design spearheaded by other competition like Samsung and Apple, with flat edges and round corners. The main camera sensor on the back seems to have grown as well, signifying that the photography on the 9 Pro could be even more impressive, which we've kind of already assumed, but now we're actually getting some visual confirmations on that, at least from these leaks. The visor bar that houses the sensors still remains, although it appears to follow more of the Pixel Fold's representation, at least in my opinion. Outside of that, not much else has really changed, but it should be enough to differentiate between its predecessor. And again, these are leaks, and the renders could change closer to launch, as that is still 9-10 months off. But as long as it doesn't feel like a brick when I'm holding it in my hand, I really don't have any personal complaints on it based on what we're seeing so far. We'll obviously throw the images up for you guys, but yeah.
I think a lot of phones are starting to have a similar exterior look to them with regards to like the flat screen and the curved edges. And I think one of the reasons why is because most people tend to prefer that because it's not as rigid on the ends, and it feels like a more, for lack of a better term, and I say this all the time, I know, refined look. But yeah, no, those leaks sound promising, and I'm sure, as expected, I'll probably get a lot more, and this is kind of me, guessing here. But we'll probably see a lot more AI integration, since that's kind of been a thing this last year or so. But that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we actually talked about that, which we'll hit on this later on with Samsung. But we're talking about how Google integrates it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they're doing and what's going to be specific for them. Because if we saw how crazy Samsung was, it's going to be fun to see where Google will take this thing. So,
Yeah, for sure. Well, Meta has announced that you can now unlink your Meta accounts, i.e., Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger accounts, including Facebook Gaming and Marketplace. Now, just as a side note here, unfortunately, that doesn't include Threads, which is kind of one of the things we talked about when the actual platform was released. We were kind of annoyed that once you made a Threads account, it was tied into all your other platforms, but that's aside the point right now. This was due to the DMA again, which it's only for people in the EU again. So there's that, the EA and Switzerland. So no one else gets to take joy in that. This would allow users to not only have, this would allow users to not have any shared data between these accounts. I think we actually mentioned, I think it was like a few weeks ago, we mentioned that Messenger itself was allowing you to have multiple different accounts at once, and they didn't share the same data. So now they're actually going a step further with this. But yeah, it's just another one of those, like, they get it, but we don't. So.
Wow. Riley, can you mention anything in your set list tonight that doesn't have to pertain to the EU? Because I'm getting bummed out over here.
There are a few more things. So.
Yeah, you threw me for a loop there at first, though, because I was like trying to figure out what you meant by unlinked. But yeah, that makes sense. And I do wish we had that, actually. Because it's just frustrating to always have that on the Facebook status messages and stuff like that. Or I know they have it as default, but I would just rather unlink everything from Instagram and have Facebook by itself and stuff like this. It's just too much. So, but congratulations to the EU. There you go. A bit of an update on the whole blood oxygen sensor case between Apple and Masimo. Apple has since resumed selling the Series 9 and Watch Ultra 2, but they have disabled the blood oxygen feature via a software update to any and all new watches yet to be sold.
Oh man.
From the way it's understood, the hardware is evidently still inside, it's just disabled. Now, some people feared that those who've already bought these watches prior to the debacle would have the sensor disabled, especially by the next WatchOS update.
Yeah.
But that actually brings us to our next item, which is WatchOS 10.3 has been released, and the fact that the blood oxygen sensor is still operational means that, at least for now, there is no intent on Apple disabling those for consumers who bought it prior. And that honestly makes sense, because if that was already part of, the health suite for those consumers, they bought that with that intent and knowing that that was going to work. So for Apple to disable that, you're going to have a ride on your hands if you go that direction. So you either need to pay some sort of fee or fine, towards Masimo or some other workaround. But obviously disabling it for existing users would be a really big no-no. So.
Yeah, for sure. I actually kind of thought in my mind, you might actually get some, people selling that for a higher price because it does have the oxygen sensor in it, at least for the time being. That could be possible. But yeah, I would agree with you right there. I do think that removing that for people that already have it is an overstep, to say the least. Which kind of makes me wonder if Masimo is like, I guess they're not going against that at all. Like, they're okay with it as long as they don't sell anymore, as long as Apple doesn't sell any more watches. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what it sounds like. I think it's based on everything new. So, and that's why they had to stop selling them originally, because that's the problem they were running into. So, yeah, unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And I'm not really sure how that will resolve. It's kind of funny how Apple is the big dog in this whole thing. And if somebody was using their patent, they would go all over them, and they'd, that smaller company would be forced to pay Apple, and yet Apple is trying to fight this. And I'm just like, how much would it cost to pay this off so we can get back to these features that are originally available?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, but it's just one of those things, and Apple doesn't like to play nice to begin with anyway. So
yeah, that's true. That's how they are. Google has removed the Google Assistant button from Android on the main home screen. Now, all that's just there is the search button. What this essentially means is you won't be able to turn on and off devices at your home or other such things from the main screen. Google did this mainly because more people were using this bar only for searching things up and not so much utilizing Google Assistant. To me, I actually really haven't used an Android much. I have a OnePlus 6, but I haven't used it a whole lot. I don't think I feel like I'm indifferent to this just because I would also probably not use the Google Assistant that much. I mean, I hardly only use Siri when I'm, need a quick timer or for a couple random things, but even just to be on a main screen, it's kind of, I really wouldn't use it a whole lot, but I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I actually trigger the assistant by holding down the power button, so
hmm
I don't. Yeah, I guess I can kind of see why they did remove that because it does seem sort of irrelevant. But I mean, at least some of the changes make sense versus what other companies do that are kind of stupid, which Google can be included in that. But
Yeah, exactly. Yep, but moving right along to deals. The first one we have is the Samsung 85 Q60C 4K Smart TV. It's running from $19.99 to $12.99, so that's a $700 off for those of you who are getting ready for the Super Bowl, as it may be. That's a pretty good deal right there. So
yeah, big screen too. Wow.
yeah, 85 inches is massive.
Mine is 65, so I can't imagine an 85. That's ridiculous.
Mine is 55, so
there you go. The 2023 MacBook Pro laptop with the M3, 8-core, 10-core GPU, 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU is $1,400. It was originally $1,600, so 13% off.
it's pretty good.
That will come, at least the starting will come with a 512 SSD and 8 gigs of RAM, so
Okay,
may want to upgrade, but I'm sure there'll also be some discounts with some of those higher specs as well.
that's true. Yeah, that's good.
But getting back to the regular news, though, T-Mobile is once again making moves to disqualify themselves as the uncarrier, as they're no longer offering price lock, at least for new subscribers. This was something that many customers could rest assured would not happen, because taxes and fees often change depending on the market and the economy. But the actual plan pricing always stayed the same. But new subscribers are no longer guaranteed that. For existing subscribers, you can still remain in that price lock as long as you don't upgrade or change your plan. And I'm sure that more changes will continue to come as everything that John Legere built will continue to fall apart, at least from my opinion.
That is just so annoying. I mean, that's all I can really say about it. It's just money grab, honestly.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's hard to tell if it's necessary to do that or if it's just to get that extra buck. Because for some other things you can easily tell, but there's those that's just like, come on, do you really need to do that? Yeah,
there's really not much you can say about it or do about it. It's just unfortunately the way it turns out for T-Mobile. And the funny thing is that, like, I get that John was able to make all those decisions and build T-Mobile as the uncarrier during, well, part of it was during the Barack Obama phase, but it was also during the Trump where everything was booming and the economy could handle those kind of policies.
Yeah,
so I get that to a certain degree, but it's just unfortunate to see it kind of phase out.
Yeah, it is. Well, with the release of VisionPro and the stark 180,000 unit sale over the past few weeks, Apple seems to be doing very well with this new release. However, some platforms are still quite not on board with being part of this eye-catching device. Netflix, YouTube, and Spotify are not making any moves to put themselves on this high-costing Apple headset. Many have made assumptions as to why this is, and the main reason, which I would agree with, is that these tech giants may just be waiting to see how well the Vision Pro does, and if it truly takes off. Another way of looking at it is that Google, a serious rival of Apple, may not want to make this thing any more popular than it could potentially be. But for now, the only thing you can really do to get around all this is to just sign into these accounts on Safari and utilize them there. So that's really the only workaround. But yeah, it's just, I figured this would probably happen just because these are major competitors, and Apple hasn't necessarily been like the best of buddies with these guys right here at times. So yeah, but I don't know what you think about this.
I'm kind of happy.
Yeah, really.
I'm a little bummed, but then again, this is, as we've said for quite a while, this is an extremely expensive product, so it's not like it's destroying the masses and their experience.
Yeah, that's true.
The irony to it all is that you are spending $3,500 and you can't experience some of these basic streaming services. So.
And that's probably their plan as well, like Google and all these other guys, is just like, let's see what happens when we don't support them.
Yeah, that's true. But that said, transitioning to what it looks like not to have price lock, like T-Mobile is going away with, the good people over at Verizon are at it again with more price increases. According to a latest email, according to a latest email that went out to customers, there will be a $4 price increase per line per month, starting sometime after March 1st.
Wow.
That will go into effect for the following older plans: the Play More, Do More, Get More Unlimited, as well as those with the same title of 5G Ultra Wideband, and then the 5G Start, 5G Play More, 5G Do More, and 5G Get More. These were those old plans that had those annoying titles. So
yeah, it should just be called Pay More now.
I can't argue with that, but not much else will change as far as the perks and add-ons. But I did want to throw in that in the midst of AT&T's restructuring, their plans are also seeing increase, but only by 99 cents. This is for their unlimited starter, extra, and premium plans. However, they are increasing the hotspot limits to these plans by 2, 15, and 10 gigs respectively, with the latter reaching up to 60 gigs on the hotspot. So AT&T, not so bad. Verizon, well, if you're on those plans, then you probably should have already expected that.
With Verizon, I would be, yes.
Yeah,
that
it's absolutely ridiculous and insane, but
$4
per line per month.
As we mentioned just a little while ago regarding the Apple Watch 9 and that whole debacle between Masimo and them with their oxygen sensor, the company, Masimo, has unveiled their watch with said oxygen sensor. Now, the first image that I'm going to show you here is very different from that of Apple or really any smartwatch for the most part. Its edges are more slanted and the crown is much larger on this model than any watch we've seen to date. Now, the president of Masimo stated that, quote, account for different factors like motion, low perfusion, skin pigmentation, or bad blood flow, which is pretty radical in my opinion. Not only that, but instead of other devices measuring your vitals every minute, this device can do it every second. Now, while this is just a prototype and the FDA has not yet approved the health features just yet, the watch price has been set to... We'll do this again, JD. You go ahead and guess. I enjoy this, our little fun games here on this show.
I'm gonna say 1,000.
You are correct. But yeah, it's. I don't feel, even with those advancements in technology like that, I don't feel like that's worth $1,000. Even Apple, who we know always increases their prices like that because they are kind of like a, everyone wants it. It looks great and everything. They don't even do it that at $1,000. Even the Watch Ultra has only stuck up at most $800. So I don't really think that it's worth it, in my opinion. But maybe you feel differently.
I don't know. I'd really have to use the device to actually see. Now, I mean, I don't know. Part of it is people will argue, kind of like me, where, I have to use the device to see if it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
There's some truth to that, but there's a lot of different things that play into it, and I feel like this is more of a proficient health device, and I kind of feel that with it running every second and detecting all that, the only question that I would really have is the battery life to it, because that's a lot to ask for it, and I'm not sure what
It
other
is.
features it includes.
Yeah.
Because if it's centered more around health, what kind of smart features might Masimo emit from the device? So I guess we might have to wait and see for that one.
Yeah, that's a good point to make. There are some things that we just don't know about yet, so maybe it's not bad to say it may not be worth it, but just from face value and everything that they've been showing, it just seems like to me it may not. But we'll have to see how that works.
I mean, we've seen other, just to note that we've seen other devices from like Garmin and such who have quite a high price, and I feel like some of their sensors are actually more accurate than Apple. That can kind of be argued, but
That is true, yeah.
I don't know if I'd be completely against the fact that it costs $1,000. I just
Don't know enough to
I
say.
guess it depends on who it's geared for, really.
Yeah,
too.
that's
the other
fair.
thing you kind of have to take into consideration. So I don't know. It'll be cool. It'll be cool to see how that evolves and how that kind of corresponds with the whole entire Apple debacle. But
Yeah,
there you have it.
for sure.
Amazon has a plan to AI boost Alexa, and then at some point here charge for it for a monthly service fee or maybe annual. From what's been seen, there is no exact pricing for the assistant on steroids, but as Alexa already seems to be a drain on the company, at least from a financial standpoint, Amazon is forced to charge for that added benefit of incorporating AI into the service. And aside from the fact that this sounds like a disaster to begin with, internal employees at Amazon aren't making smiley faces towards the big move, for they adamantly state that they wish for this pursuit to be delayed, as they're confident that very few, if any, customers will actually subscribe to the service at all. I couldn't agree more with them.
Yep.
The AI's iteration of Alexa already seems to be sketchy, as responses are a bit gray when it comes to accuracy and often provide, well, let's say less than concise responses. Some are like quite lengthy. So all that said, I get why they're doing it, and as we'll see with Samsung, AI does cost money, and I see the future of it when it comes to why they have to charge.
Yeah.
I just kind of feel like Amazon should set that into like a separate project versus incorporating it with the main assistant, or at least maybe make it a 2-level tier where you can actually add on AI features and keep what's already there for Amazon Alexa as a free option, because as Marquez says, why charge for something that's already free? That's the biggest deal I have with
Exactly.
So
yeah, no, you're 100% right. One thing we've learned from Apple, actually, and I know we talked about them a lot in this episode, and it's far from over, but is that they're taking their time with this whole AI integration with iPhone, with Siri specifically, and doing that allows you to really work in any issues that come across. If you put this immediately in, and even if your employees are concerned about this, whether they be lazy or not, it really doesn't matter, because it's still a concern that I would agree with. That's kind of says something a lot, and especially with Amazon. And I agree the point you made with it being a different device. I think that would be. I don't necessarily think it should be a tier. I wouldn't agree with you there, but I do think a whole nother new device would be a better option. And based upon how much, because I mean, like you said, it's kind of an anchor for them. They're not, well, not an anchor, but it kind of brings them down a lot with this whole AI thing. So yeah, I think you would increase the price of this device, take time with it. And then when I think, people are ready for it, then yeah, release it. But I don't think putting on Alexa is the best idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only reason why I say tier is just because it makes it easier for them to incorporate it with, people that are already with Alexa. but not destroy that experience for them. So you can have two different services, one that has a little bit more pro features, and then one
Yeah.
that you've already had that's free. So I guess that's where I was coming from. I can kind of see where you're heading towards, but that was my take on it, at least. So in either case, the bottom line of it all is I would not pay for it. I would probably test
No,
it out for your guys' sake, as far as, we're tech enthusiasts,
correct.
but it's not something I would stay with and, continue using for a long period of time, just because that's kind of, we've done fine without assistance for a while, and then assistance came along and we're still okay. I don't need to be paying for that stuff anyway, and I'm not
Mm-mm.
paying for AI either, so.
No, and especially AI that's gray and not too great at that. So,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah. For the last few years, antitrust enforcers have been getting on tech giants like Apple, and now it seems that their patience is running thin. According to Bloomberg, these enforcers allege that, quote, Apple has imposed software and hardware limitations on its iPhones and iPads to impede rivals from effectively competing, end quote. Companies like Tile, Spotify, and Beeper have made this clear as well over the years. Both parties have had their lawyers meet 3 times now discussing a suit, and while the DOJ has not made any complaints just yet, it hopes to file a suit in the first quarter. Now, my take here is I'm not sure how I feel about this. And maybe you might come at this from a different angle, because on one hand, I love seeing Apple get smacked in the face for screwing over other companies because of money grabbing and pettiness. On the other hand, excluding the Digital Market Act, I really don't know how I feel about the DOJ or any major facet of government getting in the way of companies like this. Do I think Apple should have not been jerky and let Beeper continue messing around with RCS? Absolutely. Do I think they should have allowed Epic to utilize third-party payments and not be such a money grabber? For sure. But it is their company and they have the right to do with their company as they please, as long as they don't overstep any legal bounds. And so far, I don't think you could make an argument necessarily they've done that. So I don't know. This is kind of a difficult one for me. I'm not sure how to feel on it, but
I think Apple's gotten too strong. I think they've become way too difficult to deal with, and we've said it countless times. They're not really fun to play with when it comes to other competing companies, third-party companies, and I'm gearing more towards the hard hammer coming down,
okay.
and taking them to a point where they need to be. I'm not saying for them to completely fall apart or anything like that. I'm just saying you need to kind of play a little bit more on the even playing field here for these other companies. I just don't think it's fair. And I mean, we've even saw it where, in Beeper's case, where it was reverse engineered, that's allowed, and you can actually go through and allow that to be used. And I feel like unless there's something where it was thoroughly researched and they actually found a hole in security, I don't see what the problem was with Beeper working through, the back end of iMessage. So
Yeah, me too.
As far as Spotify and Tile, I'm not really sure exactly what stipulations are there. I do feel like Tile has been limited on some of the stuff that they've been working with, but that's kind of how I feel. We kind of do tend to be semi-anti-Apple, even though we are Apple users. But I feel like it's warranted on many levels, and I think some things do need to change. So I'm not going to be all emotional about I can't wait for Apple to go down. I just want it to be balanced.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think my main concern though, and I think you did make me switch just a little bit over to like they should bring down the hammer. But it also concerns me as like what's going to be the future line drawn for companies of you can or cannot do this. That's kind of where I'm coming from, because I understand that I think you do need to make some limitations. I do agree that Apple is getting too big to handle and there does need to be that hammer to come down. But in the future, what's going to happen when a company does something and the government or, any facet of that government.
Legatories, yeah.
Yes. It just, I don't know.
And this is going to be a precedent because this is something that if it does go through from DOJ, it is going to be, you know, I would say a first time in the general idea of, okay, now they're actually taking more control of this company and trying to, I don't know. I'm not sure how they would approach it, but I guess, like I said, the key word I would see is balance. I just want balance.
Agreed.
And, so I don't know. I'm very interested to see how that turns out, and hopefully some action is taken on some level. So.
Yeah, agreed.
But Samsung's Galaxy event recently took place on the 17th, and as we expected, the S24 series wasn't too much of a departure from its predecessor. Now, obviously, the 8th Gen 3 from Snapdragon added some performance and efficiency boosts. We also saw the addition of titanium and Gorilla Glass armor to the S24 Ultra.
Yep.
As well as the increased brightness of up to 2600 nits across the board, and 7 years of OS upgrades. Big shock there, considering Google already did it. However, it is worth noting that Qi 2 was not added to this year's Galaxy S model, so we were kind of skeptical on that because we knew that was going to be the first model for 2024, or models technically. So I couldn't say I'm super surprised by that just because of the timing of it all. But the spotlight of the whole event was centered around AI, as Riley had previously mentioned on a few episodes back, sourced from a prior leak. And this impacts things from how it integrates with various aspects of daily usage, like phone calls, messaging, photography, search and browsing, along with other facets. I'm not sure if there was anything specific that stood out to you, Riley, but for me, it felt more like a WWDC event rather than a smartphone launch event, especially one from Samsung. So,
yeah, I kind of, throughout the entire event, I really didn't feel... I felt impressed with the AI, I will say that. But the one thing that I really noticed a whole lot was, I feel like they took stuff from Pixel and Apple and then just combined it into their phone. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. We've seen companies do that all the time, where they see something from another company like, oh, we'll take that. That happens all the time. But I just feel like we're getting to a point now, and I've said it before, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but we're getting to a point where phones aren't really changing that much in terms of their look or, you know, their exterior functions or gimmicks or anything. I know that's not a major issue or, you know, something that has to happen all the time. And I don't think necessarily as well that a phone's exterior defines its change. But, you know, there were some changes, obviously, with the camera. That was great. The processing, obviously, you have to have that Gen 3 in there. And, you know, the Galaxy AI was a major part of this whole event. But it just felt like there was nothing really added, even though there was stuff added. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was weird to me. I felt kind of bored at certain parts. And don't get me wrong, there were some parts that I was amazed by with the whole AI stuff, and I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. But it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't click for me.
It was a bit of a drag, and not that I know we tried to, or we have, like, kind of reviewed the event as a whole, but I mean, in general, I think these events are going to be quite similar as time goes on. I feel like they have been in the past. But yeah, I felt like it was a bit of a drag in some cases. So, and I think to your point, yeah, I mean, these phones are looking more and more like, I mean, regardless of whether it's Apple with their kind of, I can't really say trademark anymore because I'm sure other ones have duplicated it, but like the way the camera layout is on the back. But yeah, they're going to imitate each other. I mean, when you can't innovate, you imitate. So
exactly.
With that, like, to your point, it's going to be focused on something else. Where else can you kind of harness and kind of grunge up that enticement for consumers to purchase your product? And I think we're hitting that point where it's not necessarily software specifically, but because of AI, they're able to leverage that. I'm not really sure if that's leveraging, though.
No.
Because they won't actually be offering some of those AI features for free. Because at the end of 2025 or beginning at 2026, they're going to start charging for that, which goes back to Amazon and Alexa. So that's kind of the other thing to it all. Yeah, so it's kind of, we're seeing this, and it's, I don't know. I'm kind of glad that they're charging for this stuff, which I know I was a little turned off by that, only because Amazon was taking hold of something that's existing. If they're going to kind of create it separately, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of wish they do charge it, just so that way it's not evolving too quickly and they're not gaining so much, I don't know, information and data from people.
That's
so that
fair.
would kind of turn them off from using the service. That's kind of how I take it in certain respects. Maybe that's a boomer's perspective. I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know.
It's I'll do my rating, okay, and I will make this as fair as possible. For the event itself, I'll give it a solid 7. I don't really feel like they did anything new. It looked pretty good. The transitions were nice. There were certain parts that were kind of a little bit awkward, but it was okay nonetheless. So that was fine. The phones themselves, I don't know. I feel like I would give it a 6. I would give a 7 to the Plus, because I've seen people say that that's the one that they're going to get the most, because I think you're still getting those Galaxy features, the Galaxy AI features, but it's a mid-tier and it's not as expensive as the high-end. So that one I'll give an extra point to. But yeah, I would say just a 6, mainly because I wasn't enthralled. I wasn't really intrigued. It was all just kind of AI stuff to me, which again, not a huge issue. It's just that was it. And again, I would agree with you. It did feel like a WWDC event to me. Yeah. Unfortunately,
if it wasn't for what's his name, T or something like that, I would have sworn it was an Apple event on some level. But I don't know if I could actually rate the event. I guess I would put it around maybe like a 5.5 or a 6.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing though was, and you can't expect every event to be like that. I like how they actually utilized the display and the screen on the actual flooring, because that from our point of view with the camera and everything, that is so cool. And then they had the regular wide angle, which I think they actually had people a little bit higher up so they could see the flooring. So that was really cool. I will admit that, but can't really base everything off of that. So it's just more of like it's kind of like Samsung. They're a gimmick. So or at least that's what they're focused on. As far as the phones, it would probably go as a half step for each one. I'd probably start off at a 5, 5.5, and a 6, because I really don't feel like anything was major that they added to it. And I think some of the things that they, like you were saying, some of those, minor adjustments are, like I had mentioned as well, with, the nits increasement, the titanium, which didn't really make a big deal about that. But then again, I feel like Apple already killed that horse.
Oh yeah, they did. As soon as as soon as I heard that titanium, I was like, oh, here we go.
It wasn't that bad. Like, they didn't make it sound horribly. Like,
no,
they just put it in there like it's added. So I was like, okay, that's great. I think the biggest thing that I like, which is really surprising, is just a flat screen. I'm a big fan of flat screens. I do not like it when it's curved on the edges. So, but I mean, outside of that, that's pretty much it. So, I'm not sure if I'll be testing the 24 Ultra. I tested the S23 Ultra, and I liked it, but I'm not the biggest fan of them for some reason. And it's not that I'm not a fan of Android. I just don't know what it is about Samsung phones, but that's just my take on it. So
yeah, and that's kind of, I'm right there with you. I agree pretty much with everything you said. So yeah, it's okay.
The only thing that I'm actually looking forward to is the Galaxy Ring, which they announced right at the end. They didn't give anything at all on it, but
they just dropped it and then just walked out.
Right? Yeah, the mic dropped right at the end. I'm like, great. What's it gonna be?
I know.
At least we know
what's
it's
it gonna
coming.
We saw some rumors and stuff about what it would do and that kind of thing. But it was weird. But
yeah. But in any case, that'll do it for this week's episode. This is JD and Riley, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Peace out.